Welcome. This is the third installment of my conversations with Rev Joseph Boyd of the First Universalist Unitarian Church here in Youngstown, Ohio. This time we discuss the ambiguity of a personal spiritual journey, finding meaning and purpose in the pitch black. Jacob wrestles with the angel, runnels, and the theory of change, finding uniqueness in the mundane and garbage time, the dull moments where the unexpected beauty can happen. Board of directors is the term that I use for the people in my life invested in me incorporated to be the most profitable emotionally, physically, and spiritually that I can be. I record some of those conversations. This is one of them. I hope you enjoy. Joseph, welcome back. This is part 3 of our series together. When we last spoke, we were talking about my concern with what seems to be a flavor of Christianity, Christian nationalism, that seems to be very pervasive in giving permission to people in power to do the bidding of the empire, right? And we were talking about how Christ was very much against that. And you had mentioned kind of at the end of our last conversation that you felt very optimistic about people who were seeking something, some form of personal truth that it will turn out okay for them, kind of in the long run, as long as they are not harming anybody else or seeking a truth in good faith. And so we were just kind of expounding on that, just a minute ago, and I wanted to write the camera before we come.
Yeah, sure. We were just kind of chatting before we started rolling that. I mean, I think that having a community or even just one other person to bounce stuff off of is really helpful. Like, just having a space to say, this is kind of what I'm seeking, even if I don't know what I'm looking for, but having another person to kind of be in that process with, I think can help guide that sense of finding what is beautiful and what is worthy. Because we can get lost in our own, we all do, I do too. We can get lost in kind of, rabbit holes and, stuff that maybe is not helpful for us. And it's not sometimes until we're talking it out that we kind of realize there's like another option, there are other possibilities here. And for instance, like we were talking, maybe was it last time, about like some of the biblical stories. And a lot of us, for those, if we grew up in that tradition, a lot of those stories are like rabbit holes where we think it goes down just one way. And it's not a way we want to go down ever again.
Right.
And I think it can be kind of nice and it can be liberating to kind of discover like, oh, there are all these other possibilities here. And it's the same context situation, but there's lots of ways to engage it. But you don't always know that until you kind of talk it out with someone or you're in a different space with different people. It can show you that like, oh, this thing that you've kind of, you're stuck your foot in your mouth over and over again about this thing, or this was always a pain in your side. It can be a pain in your side, but there's also something else here too,
Sure. And I think that as it relates to like religion and a spiritual journey, there's a lot of us who are used to it being handed to us from someone else.
Yeah.
This is what the Word of God says.
Yeah.
This is how we believe this thing.
Yeah.
And this is how we interpret this verse. And I think that can be, for myself personally, as I've been listening back to our conversations, there's a lot of ambiguity coming out of you.
Yes.
And there's a lot of very rigid, I will say, there's a lot of me trying to find the walls in a dark room.
Yeah, sure.
And I think that's a very hard thing. You can hear me in these 3 episodes. I'm really wrestling with that.
Yeah. And, I don't know if I don't know if I just give you my own intuition, and it's just something I've kind of been following. Is I'm more interested, because this is what interests me when I'm in conversation with someone like you, in a kind way, trying to provoke the murmurings of the spirit in someone. So it's less like I'm handing you this on a platter and here's what you believe and here's what you have to think and here's a view of the world that you should adopt or something like that. And it's more like, no, and actually I think coming and like talking And that can be true in a worship service, or it could be more informal like this, you know? Like, no, something's probably going to be provoked in me that I didn't expect. And I'm hoping that it's mutual. And for me, that's actually much more interesting. That's more interesting, where we're co-creating something together. And it's less like, I have all these answers and I have all this cool stuff and I'm going to give it to you. And you're going to be a much happier person. I mean, I guess that's cleaner. But yeah, I like the ambiguity of like, no, I'm feeling myself through this kind of dark room too. And that's okay. That's okay. You know, I guess that's kind of maybe where I'm kind of oriented at this time, you know?
Yeah, I guess then I am wondering where where does one go about finding that, as you said, the murmuring of the spirit, like, I've been brainwashed to believe the way that, tradition, traditional, so modern Christianity, and that it gets handed down to you. You get the communion,
Yeah.
and there's not a lot of questioning of dogma, doctrine, interpretations or whatnot. And how does one go about even tuning into that? I feel like I got an AM radio, and
I don't think it has to be that hard. I think this is just something I've come up with and felt kind of recently. I think it's just curiosity about what we love. Curiosity about what we love. And I think it's actually okay to start from a place of, I don't know in this moment, but I think that's an orientation. So it's less kind of esoteric, but like, in this moment, I'm, you know, loving that we can be here, in the sunshine. And I love that you've, you know, given this wonderful mason jar full of water, which reminds me of the West Coast, which is where I grew up. And like, it doesn't have to be a huge thing. Like, it can be like, that's what I found in a room that I didn't expect. And that's lovely. Like, in this moment, like this coffee, I love, and this,
sure.
in this kind of gentle conversation we're having, where we're kind of wondering together. I love it, actually. And like, that's kind of like, I guess for me, kind of a growing sense of a path for me. And I don't know, but I kind of sense that could be possible for someone else. Curiosity, what do I love? Because there's a lot of, I think, weight right now about what we are afraid of and what we don't want. And I think that's all. But I think even those, if we dig down a little bit deeper, are based on something about what we love that somehow feels in jeopardy or threatened, but it's still love. And really, when we get down to it, it's down there. So I don't know if that makes sense, but
no, it does make sense. I just wonder if there's a framework around what we love. Is it something as trite as I love baseball, or is it something deeper? I love my family, or
for me, I don't know. I'm curious if it's like this for you. For me, it feels really all connected. Like when you say baseball, I love baseball. I do. And my first thought and my feeling is I go to my father.
Okay.
Because my father loved baseball. And we would go to games together. And like I'm in the deep spot. And all that through baseball.
That's that's interesting, because I do think about my father and baseball too. I'm sure many people who grew up in kind of the same era that we did, baseball and dad is kind of a thing. But I had come to find out years later. So he would take us to New York City. We'd go to the Bronx. We'd watch the Yankees play. And I'd come to find out years later, we did this religiously every summer, many times a summer. And I came to find out, maybe it was even this year,
recently.
50, I'm 50, and that my dad said, I really hate baseball. And I was like, wait a second, what do you mean you used to take us to the games. You coached my little league team.
Wow, you coached too.
Yeah, I mean, listen, my father and I have a very strained and kind of, we don't understand each other. And especially now that I'm a dad, I really don't understand. But I come to accept that, and love him in the way that he is. But that was the one thing that he would do with me: play catch, coach the team, teach me the skills. He made me bat left-handed, so because he knew that I wasn't very good, and so like you'll make the team because every team needs a lefty, and so he taught me how to bat.
That's left-handed. It's funny. I was actually taught to bat left-handed too. My dad was a lefty, and I'm actually a righty. But because he was a lefty, I learned how to bat.
Sure. I mean, that's how I made it. Little League.
Yeah.
His thinking was, you're one step closer to first base. But what it came down to at that age is that most pitchers never faced a left-handed batter, and so you got walked a lot. My on-base percentage was probably like 75% of the time I went up to the plate, I was getting just blocked because I just couldn't. It just the foreignness of having a body, 14 inches on the other side of the plate. But yeah, to come out to find out that my dad absolutely hated baseball.
Did he ever say why he took you to all the games if he hated them?
I don't know if we went down that road, but I asked him, well, why do you hate baseball? And he hated baseball because growing up, when he was little, he was a Giants fan, a New York Giants fan. And they moved the team when he was 7 to San Francisco. And he just couldn't understand how they could take the team that he rooted for and move them to another time zone.
Yeah.
3,500 miles away.
Yeah.
He did not understand that and never forgave the sport for it. And yeah, the irony of ironies being that I love the Giants now. And we went to a game one time. He visited me in San Francisco, and I took him to a game, not knowing that he hated baseball. And who knows what his experience was at that game, going, oh, this would be the team that I would be rooting for if they were on the other coast.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. See, like, it's almost like I hate doing this, but it's like, yeah, man, you're triggering so much good stuff for me too. Cause like, yeah, it's almost like, moving teams and then taking in baseball. It's almost like that's just like abandonment of like a team moving, but then like sharing that love. Yeah. Because for some reason, right, my dad loved baseball too. And my dad had a really hard relationship with his own father. Really, really hard, really, really hard. And a lot of bitterness there, pain and all that. But he was a really good father. And I think the kind of like, almost kind of, I don't know if it's similar, but like he really, hate would be a strong word, but really almost their strong feelings of like repulsion and revulsion, but still shared that with me, So I don't know, it is it's complicated stuff, Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think there's something about it, again, kind of through this kind of, I think church can be like that too, where we discover that almost for, I think, for all of us, there's all these complications and complexity, but then we kind of feel, even though they're particular, we share them in a weird way. We really do.
Yeah. Yeah. As I'm kind of in the back of my mind thinking about what is it, because I'm really struggling to put my finger on what do you love, and then dial it down into that, even though I know all of this stuff. And I think that how we started this conversation was with community. That to me feels like something where I can really plant a flag and go, this is really what I love.
Yeah.
And I think that as the world feels so fractured and broken faith in institutions and people and uh, creeds feel like everything is a failure, kind of the way that I felt like my church experience was a failure. And I couldn't accept that because I expected divine. I expected perfection. This is what we're going for, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that at the very end of the day, finding that community, as I have, we were talking before we got on the mics about when we lived in South Dakota through COVID, and I never felt more isolated in my life. Like it was horrible. I couldn't find a community. Um, there wasn't like a lot, it was a small town, so there's not like a lot of opportunities for things either. And when we moved here to Youngstown, that was one thing that I was like, I have to fix that. I have to find a community wherever that is. You know, if I've got to become a bird watcher, you know, like
You
I'll
develop
do
like
it.
hobbies.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is yeah.
And I just have to find it.
So you have been, I mean, you've been navigating based on what you've loved. Like you're like, that's the direction I want to go in.
Yeah, and I think for me, the reason why is that I need to be able to say the things in my head out loud and hear how ridiculous it is.
Yeah, that's
Like,
huge.
whoa,
Yeah.
you're thinking
No.
that?
Yeah.
Okay, well, hold on, let's just stop there. Because if I'm just left alone to my own devices, that things go very poorly. You know, because I can justify anything to myself.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's, yeah, no, I think you really get onto something where I think there is something of value where I definitely experience this too. Like, yeah, kind of when we're alone by ourselves, everything feels completely real and completely daunting when we're by ourselves. And then we say it out loud to even just one other person, and it somehow becomes a little bit more, we can see the ridiculousness or the holes or the ways we've exaggerated or kind of clung on to a view of things, which is just a view. And there's something kind of great about realizing that, like, oh, that it's not that that's not true. That's just a view. And that's huge. At least I find that huge. I find that helpful.
Yeah, I'm thinking to my wife's father passed away last year, right around this time, and she had found a journal of his or whatever, and he lived alone. Um, and you know, all the kids are grown, obviously, and uh, he did have family around him, but he lived alone for a very long time. And his journal was just pages and pages of, I know I need to do X, whatever, clean the gutters or finish this project or, you know, whatever. But I just can't. I can't find the motivation to start. I don't know where to begin, like all those things. And like you can see him just wrestling with himself at that. And now that, you know, I'm home all the time by myself, I work here, everything happens here. And I find myself doing that as well. And I'm thinking about him. And this is why I have to go out and find that community. I need to go and have coffee with someone to just say, this is what's going on right now. What's work through it, because or else I won't do anything, you know, and I'm just home for, you know, 8, 9 hours a day by myself. And then everyone comes home from school and work and whatnot.
Yeah.
But just not having people around me for that short of time, who knows what I'll get up to? You really don't know. Which is why, for me, the searching for the community, for other people, for the board of directors, so that I can, and maybe this is kind of even tied back into the overall thread of this conversation, is being handed down information that's very valuable, so that I can just go, oh, I'll just do that.
Sure.
You know, okay, this is what we believe Jesus meant. Okay, great. Oh, this is what I should plan my next business venture on? Okay, great. Rather than me wrestling with it endlessly. I always I always think about the story in the Bible of it's Jacob who wrestles with the angel. This
It's actually my favorite story.
it's my favorite too. Uh, I think about it, and even when I was not religious, I reference the story because it makes so much sense to me.
Yeah.
You know,
What makes sense to you?
that's the human condition. You run, and it happens at night. What do you do at night? You lay awake in bed, thinking about the next day, or maybe this problem
Yeah.
that's happening, and you're tossing and turning, and your partner is sleeping soundly, or your dog's snoring, and you're just up and you're pacing, and you're wrestling with this thing in your head. That's what it means to me. Like I find a lot of symbolism there for just like the human condition. Um, I'm curious to know.
No, it's so wild that you say that because we began this conversation just today saying, kind of this image of like, you're trying to find the walls, kind of feeling into a dark room. And then that story of Jacob wrestling with the angel, which, as you said, it has to happen at night. So if you don't have a full sense of even what's happening, what's going on. But the part of that that's always rich for me is the intention, which is so wild. I didn't even put together until you mentioned this, that, we're trying to find a blessing in the dark. That's it, right?
Sure.
It's not, we're not wrestling for the hell of it. We're not wrestling because we don't know what else to do or because, no, there's a real powerful, like, there's a seeking. And, in that story, it's, gosh, man, you really kind of got something deep, hit something deep here because we were talking about our fathers and like complication of love, right? And in that story, Jacob's hip goes out of socket because, he's touched by the angel. So he experiences pain and a blessing.
Yeah.
Both.
Yeah.
And yeah, that feels true, like, yeah, it's not the glorification of a pain. It's just that is also sometimes how it happens where yes, there can be pain and there's also a blessing and love. And they somehow we don't know how I don't know how that works together, but it happens.
Maybe even sometimes we see them as the pain and the blessing as what they are, but really the pain is the blessing.
Yeah. In time maybe. Yeah, it can be.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's great, right? Jacob, forever since that moment, he always has a limp, but he also has a completely new identity. He gets a new name. His new name's Israel.
Yeah.
And so he's like both restored and maimed. Like, yeah, that feels very human to me.
Yeah.
So maybe, I don't know, that's what I'm getting at. I feel like, I don't know, like in this conversation, we're really kind of, I don't know, getting to kind of my own intuition and I don't know, I don't want to put words in your mouth, maybe in a way yours too, is that when you put two people together who are seeking in the dark, something happens. Something happens, and it's hard to control it or manage it or predict it, but I think something does happen.
Well, you can at least hold hands.
Well,
and your reach is longer. Um, yeah, and there's a kind of shared struggle there as well. You're not suffering alone in the dark. You're sharing it with someone else, and the suffering seems to be a little bit less. That you're able to find maybe even some humor or levity in what are we doing in this room?
yeah,
Maybe this is a huge warehouse. Maybe it's, a closet in a submarine. We don't know. But this is ridiculous. Ha ha ha. But if you were by yourself, it would just be woe and lament and just the feeling of helplessness. And
and there's a mystery in that story. Like you just kind of reminded me that sometimes the translation, depending, is Jacob wrestling with a man or angel. And I like that kind of that ambiguity. Like you said, maybe there's a lot of ambiguity. I like sometimes that mystery. We don't always know what we're wrestling with. And we think we're wrestling with something that's completely we understand.
Yeah.
And then we realize, oh, there's a lot more here that's coming out of this wrestling. And out of that, yeah, we can be surprised, and in a good way, actually. You know,
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Because he demands a blessing.
Yeah.
That's how the whole thing happens.
yeah,
And
which I like. He doesn't ask. I actually like that. He's like, no, I'm gonna get it. The ridiculousness of that, right? I will get it. I don't care if I'm fighting something that's like superhuman, whatever. This is gonna happen.
yeah, I appreciate it. As somebody who's very stubborn, I appreciate the obstinance. Like, no. Yeah,
that was a story that was read when I was ordained.
oh wow.
It's my favorite story.
Oh wow.
And they read that story as part of like my ordination in Youngstown. I was ordained here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and the way our church works is a church has to ordain you. It can't be like a governing body. It has to be a community that makes a minister.
Oh,
Which is beautiful, right?
that is really cool. So, if you say theoretically a person in your position moved congregations, that other congregation would have.
No, ordination is good forever.
Okay.
But what's great is you can, get a seminary degree. You can go see kind of the denominational body that can give you kind of a stamp of approval, like a recommendation. But the real test of like whether you're a minister or not is you have a community who sees a minister.
Oh no.
That's the real test.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it's cool, right?
That's really, really cool.
And so Youngstown, and that's where the ordination happened, and they read that story, which for me is just so rich.
Is that why you love it, or did you love it before that?
I loved it before, but it's one of those mysterious stories where I feel like every time I feel like I know the meaning of it, it kind of seems to like be beyond my grasp. It's one of those stories. For me, that's a great story. Like, I feel like I can touch it and it's so real and it's so powerful. And yet it's always beyond my grasp, like the true kind of feeling and power of that. But I think the stubbornness actually was part of the reason why I read it as part of the ordination. This sense of like, don't give up. That's actually the feeling that I had when I was ordained, was like, no, I didn't give up, and it led me here. And this is a beautiful place. And so whatever we're wrestling, don't give up,
Yeah. That's kind of the beauty of stubbornness. It's both a blessing and a curse.
Sure. Yeah. If you can be stubborn about, fruitful things, yeah, it can be good.
Right. Like you won't.
That's right. That's right. Exactly.
And so when you do you like fill out like a job application, or how's that? Is there like a Craigslist or a LinkedIn for ministers, to be ministers?
It's funny. It's not too far off. There's basically there is a list, a kind of clearinghouse of both congregations and ministers who go into search. And what I like about our process is it's completely free on both ends. So there's no coercion on either side. Like, every congregation is free to choose whoever they want as a minister. They're not forced to choose any particular person or not. And every minister is free to decide if they want to or not. They're not kind of coerced and made to. So yeah.
What were your initial thoughts when you came to Youngstown?
It's funny. Youngstown is very it's still mysterious to me, but like, I didn't grow up here. I don't have any family here. I just was really blown away by the hospitality of the search committee, the people who called me. and it's small things, but they didn't really feel that small to me. Like I interviewed with them when I was in Tulsa, and then right after the interview, they sent me a bouquet of flowers,
Oh,
which felt very extravagant and lovely. Like, no one's ever sent me flowers. It was like this wonderful bouquet, and just like this sense of like, I don't know, it was just a vibe of like, no, these are people I feel like who kind of like with you, like there's a feeling of like, I can be in process here and figure it out with them. And we have an understanding. It's hard yet to articulate, but like, oh, we can do stuff together. Like we can feel stuff out together. I don't need to pretend to be otherwise. They don't need to pretend to be otherwise. We can show up as real people and find our way to something together that I think could be cool. And then there was just that sense of trust I had pretty much right away. But it was mysterious to me because I didn't have any like things to pin that on. Like there was no reasoning of like, oh, I know the Midwest, or I know Youngstown, or oh, I've been there before. Like there was no marker there. I mean, to kind of use your analogy, there were no walls. I'm like, oh, I got this. I can feel my, no, it was completely open, completely dark, completely like, but it was just a trust of like, I don't know why this seems to work. This seems to like, there's a resonance here. Um, and maybe that's kind of been a guide for me, kind of like maybe if that's helpful. Like it's not just kind of feeling in the dark, willy-nilly, kind of like without any direction. There actually is a direction, but it's more kind of like um I guess maybe more of a feeling or intuition of like there's just a resonance here. I can't articulate what it is, but I vibe with these people in this place, and this seems right, you know. Yeah.
how long were you in Tulsa for?
Just 10 months. It was a short internship.
Okay.
Yeah. So our process is you go from seminary to usually an internship. And then after that, you can, if you're going to go into congregational ministry, then you can go into search and find a congregation if you want.
What else could you do?
You could be like a chaplain in a hospital.
I see.
You could do a community ministry. You could like start a nonprofit. It's funny, actually, most of my cohorts are not in parish ministry, like from seminary. Most of them are doing like, they're working as part of a nonprofit, or they have a startup, or they're like doing street ministry, or like, they're kind of making up their own thing as they're going, which is cool, which is really cool. It's kind of maybe a bit kind of old school that I've kind of been drawn to something like parish ministry, but I had felt drawn to it. Yeah.
What do you have any like concrete things that draw you to it, or are we still existing on mostly vibes and
No, there's definitely concrete stuff. I like having the stability of a community that gives me and other people this kind of really cool combination of like, you have this stability and kind of feeling of like the seasons and the rituals of like, we're going to do Christmas Eve, and, it's now time for the fall. So we're going to do the fall equinox. Like you have these kind of markers, but in that is just the richness of life, which is change. And so I just love this mix of the mundane and the extraordinary. That for me is what I get from parish ministry, where, on every given week, you can just be talking about somebody about the weather and how they're doing with their garden. And, a few months down the road, there might be, a time when their daughter's getting married. And so you're kind of going through these kind of like mundane highs, lows. And if you stick with it, you get to do that with people over time. And I just love that kind of connection with people. It just feels really kind of right for me.
do you have to do anything to like as a parent, I've realized that there are some times where I need to first take care of myself to be there for my son's life. And if I'm not doing that, sometimes I mess up. Cause problem.
For sure.
When either I'm overextending myself or I'm not listening, like, hey, sorry for saying that. What things do you do to make sure that you're ready on a Sunday or a Tuesday to be there for people? Because I can only imagine the kind of what's coming at you from all angles.
Sure. Yeah, and it's changed, but definitely have to do that. You know, in some ways, I'm pretty introverted. Um, Funny enough, I think I've learned a lot of my social skills. They've gotten more honed in ministry. But I'm very, and so actually, it is important for me to spend time on my own. You know, it is important. That's very rejuvenating for me, just to be in my own energy without a lot of input. I get rejuvenated by that. It's also really good for me to like, in a way, kind of take a trip, and it doesn't have to be a major one, it can be a day trip, but to do something a little bit different than my ordinary to get a new perspective.
Sure. Yeah.
Like, that's really important for me, because I can get into kind of a rut of thinking of like, oh, this always has to be this way, or I always have to feel this way about it, or this thing happened again, and gosh, that's frustrating, and it's always going to be frustrating.
Yeah.
Instead of like, I have to, sometimes when I go away for a little bit and I come back and be like, kind of like what we talked about, like, oh, the thing that I thought was a pain in my side, oh, what if I just don't do that and I do it like this?
Yeah.
But I don't always have that awareness in the moment. It feels like, no, that's the only way, and it's just going to be horrible. And like, oh no, actually, this could be a joy if actually I do it this way with these people instead.
Yeah.
Or I say, you know what, I haven't figured this out. I need some help. Maybe let's see what something new can come. And then, oh, it's even better than what I was doing.
Yeah.
You know? So like that kind of shift, and then and I've learned it doesn't have to be huge. It doesn't have to be huge, but sometimes when I'm in it, I'm sure maybe you can relate to, like, it just feels like there's no other alternative.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's I often think about this concept of I think they're called runnels.
No,
So basically, it's just like a little path, a life path that you're on, and then it seems like this is it. This is the path. And all you have to do is just stand up and look around, and there's runnels going everywhere. You can just come out of it and get into another one. And
Yeah.
go that way.
it's called runnels.
Yeah, there's a gentleman who came up with a concept. It's this whole I don't know if it's a philosophy, but it's, you know, he came up with it, and it's very, it's something that I've thought of, like, how do you get the perspective, especially like we've been saying, you're in this runnel, you're in this, you know, mode of this is how my life is going, and it can sometimes feel like maybe even isolating, or like even when you're around people, you're not in the moment with them.
Yeah.
This is the thing. We're doing this now. We're eating dinner, and then we're going to do, you know, whatever. And that's what we do on Wednesdays.
Totally.
Without taking time, like, why do we do that
Yeah.
kind of thing? Is there somewhere else that we can go? And for me, travel definitely is something that helps me get out of it. If only for like a long car ride where I can just mesmerize myself by the freeway.
Yeah. No, I'm the same actually.
And then
There's something about driving that, yeah, it helps me. Just driving, just going on a drive, and especially if I can say, you know, I'll go somewhere new, or I'll go to the same place, but I'm going to take a new route,
yeah,
and just kind of get lost for a little bit. I'll give myself, you know, an hour or whatever.
yeah,
And like, yeah, no, it definitely does.
I would, when I worked downtown in San Francisco, we lived in the same place forever because it was rent control.
Yeah.
And so I would go the same route. Even if I change jobs, you're going downtown. So you're going one way. I was a cyclist, so there's safe ways to go, you know? But I would always try to find one thing new to and from work and
I
home,
love that. I love that.
just to get that in my head. Like there's something,
Like a landmark or something.
yeah, or something that I never noticed before, or maybe I've seen a million times and never really looked at it,
I love that.
you know? Uh,
Yeah.
just to kind of keep myself curious about my environment.
Yeah.
That I was, you know, felt like I knew the back of my hand, and felt like I was very intimate, and then to find something new
I love that.
about it.
See, that feels like, to me, like a great practice. I love that. Really, like, I like that. Just finding something new, one or two things. It doesn't have to be huge.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
it could
and,
be.
and then it kind of opens up the whole field, at least for me. Like, what? Because I've done something similar. Like, if I could find just one or two new things, the whole thing opens up. You know?
Yeah, I think it's just training the perspective. and being a little bit more intentional about, even if this is what we're doing now,
Yeah.
let's be a little bit more intentional about, appreciating our surroundings or the people that we're with. Um, uh, uh, yeah, I find that, because I do it myself, that I become so heads down in something that I don't appreciate the moments of mundaneness, the beauty of just, the same old.
Yeah.
Um,
And it's funny, like even the mundane, that's just an idea, right? That's what I mean by opening it up. Like all it takes is finding one or two things to be like, oh, the thing that I thought was mundane is really now strange or
Yeah.
beautiful or ugly or what the heck or whatever, and then it becomes like, oh, that's not, now we're in a different world here.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, you start questioning everything.
Yeah.
Wait a second, I thought I knew this.
Yeah, exactly.
What else don't I know?
Yeah, right. Like, oh, that store is there? What? They sell tacos and mattresses in the same place? What is going on here? Like,
Often my kids are at the age where, an older couple might stop me if I'm with them and, like, just make a comment. And then as we kind of, go our separate ways, they'll say, it goes really fast.
Mm.
And I've been thinking about that a lot because I, for the first time in my life, very recently was the older person with a younger dad. And then the kids were probably like 2 and 4 or something like that. And I was like, it goes by fast. And I was like, thinking like, oh, all of this, I like to call it garbage time. Garbage time.
Okay.
So like we're just, maybe we're putting away dishes or we're driving in the car or whatever. And just a little conversation happens. And it's just a little bit of, interaction where we're just being together. Instead of like, garbage time is like intentional. Like, I am taking you fishing and we're going to enjoy it and make memories. No, we're just raking leaves and we just have a conversation. That's what I mean by garbage time, because you're not thinking that, you're doing the memory making thing.
Sure.
You're just raking leaves.
Holy shit. See, you're really hitting something. No, that's because that's actually my feeling now of church, is what you're describing. I used to think it was like, come on, everyone, we're going to go fishing. I used to think that's what it was when I first started. And now I'm really seeing the most powerful stuff happens when you're kind of like, yeah, can you help me, dry the dishes?
Yeah. And
we're not talking about anything spiritual, but something will come out of that.
Yeah.
There's a relaxed quality.
Yeah.
That's usually the best stuff. That's it. And it's kind of through the side door. And it's not intentional. It's not manipulative. It's just kind of like, yeah, when we don't put so much pressure on ourselves, something true comes through. And it doesn't have to be deep or anything, just whatever. But like, that's a good time, right?
Yeah.
And that's more my feeling now about church, which I did not have actually when I first started. Was like, it doesn't have to be the let's go fishing, guys. It can be just like, no, we're sitting here and I don't know. This could be a boring conversation. That would be fine. I'm still having good coffee. Like, it's fine.
Its intimacy has to come in a relaxed state. And those moments are the relaxed state. The let's go fishing is anticipation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's an expectation.
Right.
Like, this is going to be a memory, guys. So buckle your seatbelts, right? Like, I'm like, oh, geez.
I never have my camera ready.
Right.
Where's my phone?
Right.
Where there's no expectations if you're just doing the dishes.
Yeah.
It's just, we're just doing this thing together, and little moments more powerful than we're standing in the stream holding a big fish.
Yeah.
Here, wait, let me pose here so I can get the picture, put it on Instagram.
Yeah.
We're not taking pictures during the dishes.
And you're helping me articulate this because maybe that is kind of a different feeling than like, I'm not interested in just being in a dark room, you know, like with ambiguity and not giving any sense of like what's happening. I think it's more like when people come to expectation and they're used to a church or a place where they're like, give me the goods, give me the fish. Like we're gonna go fishing, right? When is the fishing trip happening? And like, yeah, I guess my feeling is like, no, let's just have a cup of coffee and let's talk. And I don't know where that's gonna go. But I'm trusting that that may lead us to somewhere that's going to be better than when we do we're going to go do the mission trip now, guys. And we're going to do this thing. And you ready for enlightenment? Guess what? We're going to do it right now. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's fine. But I'm more interested in like, I don't know. Yeah. I guess what you call it. Yeah. It's a different time. It's a relaxed time. That's something in that space can open up. I do trust that. So that you're helping me actually articulate that.
It's the moments between the things that we think are a big deal is where life kind of happens.
Right.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you very much for joining me again today. I look forward to the next time that we can sit down and chat again.
Yeah, I appreciate this. Thanks.
Right on.